Bonjour, Kinamagi Nene Ireland Adujnikas, and welcome to this production of the My Math Network. Today's episode, Chapter 4, Lesson 5, Divide Greater Numbers. The essential question for Chapter 4, what strategies can I use to divide by a two-digit divisor? So let's begin with this question. What is the relationship between the remainder and the divisor? The remainder is what's left over once we figure out how many times the divisor goes into the dividend. It also tells us if we have chosen the right digits within the quotient. Let's look at a big number. 53,924 divided by 37. If right now you're sitting here thinking, whoa, you shouldn't. Because at no point am I going to ever go 37 into 53,924. In fact, I'm going to start out at 53 divided by 37. And then I'm going to follow my steps. And as you recall, our steps are divide, multiply, subtract, compare or check, bring down. So I'm going to start by saying, how many times does 37 go into 53? Notice we never tried the 5 because a two-digit number is never going to go into a one-digit number. So we start at 53. And I can look and I say, well, this is close to 4 and this is close to 5. Let's start at 1. So that's my divide step. Now I multiply. And when I multiply, it's whatever digit I just put up on the quotient times the divisor. So 37 times 1. And if you recall the identity property of multiplication, anytime we multiply by 1, the number stays the same. Now I subtract. 53 minus 37 is 16. 16 is less than 37. I can bring down the 9. Now my next step is I have to figure out how many times do I want to try this. This is pretty close to a 4, and 4 goes into 16 4 times. So I'm going to try a 4. Is there the chance that it could be incorrect? Absolutely. But that's why we did the lesson on adjusting the quotient. So now I multiply. 4 times 7 is 28. So I put an 8. I'm going to regroup a 2 up here. 4 times 3 is 12 plus 2 is 14. 14 is less than 37. So that is a helpful thing. And subtract, I get a 1. And I get a 2. 212. But at the point that I'm at 21 is less than 37, I bring down the 2. Now I'm going to say how many times does 37 go into 212? This is close to a 5. This is close to 5. This would be a 4, and it goes into 25 times. So I'm going to try a 5. 5 times 7 is 35. I'll put my 3 right here. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 3 is 18. And then I subtract, and I'll have a 27. 27 is less than 37, so I bring down the 4. Now I'm going to try an 8. Because this is close to 28, and that's close to 4. So actually, I want to try a 7. Let's see how that works. 7 times 7 is 49. I'm going to put 4 there. 7 times 3 is 21, plus 4 is 25. And I subtract, and I'm going to end up with 15. So that's my remainder because 15 is less than 37. So out of this problem, what I found is I did 53 divided by 37. I did 169 divided by 37. I did 212 divided by 37. And I did 274 divided by 37. At no point did I have to do 53,924 by 37. So the key out of this part of the presentation is just remember to follow your steps and break it down into chunks. We're not worried about how big the number is. It just tells us how many times we're going to have to run through the divide, multiply, subtract, and compare and bring down. Everything else is the same. All right, I'm going to go ahead and clear the drawings. And I'm going to take us in to the book, page 277, Math in My World Example Basic. This is lesson 5's packet. So I would like you to pause the video if you need to go get the packet. And then we will continue from here. So go ahead and pause now. If you left, welcome back. If you stayed, thank you for your patience. At this point, you should be filling it in. If you're watching this on YouTube, if I'm moving too fast, feel free to pause the video and then we'll go from there. And you can unpause it as you need. So I'm going to start out with example basic, and this is on 277. A large city has a total of 22,500 students that ride a bus to school. There are 75 different schools within the city. How many students are dropped off at each school if an equal number of students are dropped off at each school? Let's represent the number of students dropped off at each school. Write an equation to find the value of S. So I'm going to grab my annotation tools so that I can make this legible for you. And when I'm dividing, I need to figure out what am I dividing? And it looks like 22,500. And into how many groups? 75. And that's S. The S really doesn't mean a lot. It just means students in this case. I could have chosen any other letter. So I'm going to start out by placing the first digit. 75 won't go into 2. 2 digits don't go into 1. 75 won't go into 22 because 75 is larger than 22. So now I'm going to go 75 into 225. And if you're good with money, you might say to yourself, Mr. I, that's 9 quarters, that's 3. So let's start at a 3. And you would be right, 75 times 3 is, you're right, 225. Go ahead and write that in. And when you subtract, you're going to get a 0, which is less than 75. And you're going to notice in your packet, steps 3 and 4 are located on the slide. I'm not going to change my slide, only to avoid having to retype things in. So our next step, when we divide, multiply, subtract, compare, and bring down, we have to bring down a 0. How many times will 75 go into 0? Well, 0. Nothing can go into 0. So now I have to still follow my steps. I multiply. Anytime you multiply by a 0, it's 0. I subtract, it's 0. I bring down, it's 0. 75 still goes into 0, 0 times. I multiply, 75 times 0 is 0. I subtract, I get a 0. I'm done. 300 is my answer. Realistically, this was not a super difficult problem if you remember to place your first digit and to place zeros in your quotient. But yet, a lot of times we get stuck by looking at 22,500. It's this really long number. And then we're divided by a 2-digit number, so make it even harder. Don't let yourself be psyched out by yourself. All right, so go ahead and write this in. If you haven't written these numbers here in the yellow portion, feel free to do that. If you have to pause the video to do that, feel free and then just come right back. All right, I'm going to go ahead and clear the drawings here. We're going to move a little forward here. You saw the steps. And then at the bottom, if you needed to write it in, too far. They didn't even make us do it. So cool. So let's look on the top of 278, example niche. First, they want us to estimate the quotient of 46,532, 534, and 152. Looks like a big problem, but the steps are still going to remain the same. So again, we're going to fill this out as we go. So I'm going to grab my annotation tool so we can get started. And the first thing we're going to do is we need to find a reasonable estimate. First off, I'm going to take a 0 off of each. So now I'm going to say how many times will 15 go into 45? And if you're good, that's 3. And then there are 2 zeros left over, so about 300. So we are going to just start over here. 152 doesn't go into 4. It doesn't go into 6. It goes into 5, however. And oddly enough, they have this in a weird spot. So I'm not a huge fan. I would have rather written in a different spot. I'm gonna put it over here. And no, actually, I don't want to do that. I'm gonna see how this plays out. So I put my 3 in the hundreds place. And now I multiply 152. Well, 150 was 450. So 456. I subtract, I get a 9. Is 9 less than 152? Yeah. So then I bring down a 3 and I've got the 3. We get a 93. And this is where the style of their problem is going to create me an issue. It's not going to go over the right spots. They didn't line this up very well. On this slide, it is lined up better on your page. So I had the 3, which was over top of your 5. My apologies to the confusion here. Then over your, so 152 doesn't go into 93. So over top of your 3, you put it 0 because it doesn't go in. 152 times 0 is 0. And you subtract, and 93 minus nothing is still 93. 93 is less than 152 still. Bring down the 4, you have a 934. So the next digit is what's going to go over top of your 4 on your page, not on mine. And I'm going to estimate, I know that 15 goes into 60 4 times and 96 times. So I'm going to try the 6. $152 times 6 is going to be 6 times 2 is 12. Put up, carry the 1. 6 times 15 is 90 plus 1 is 91. I subtract, and I'm going to get 22. So we get an answer of 306, remainder 22. Again, your numbers are lined up differently. They did not do me any favors on this problem. But this will be your answer. If you need to pause the video to write it in correctly on yours, I have the right number of boxes. Like I said, the quotient is just slightly misaligned, much to my chagrin. But we cope, right? All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and clear the drawings. I'm gonna bounce forward here. Let me see that they have run the steps. So we got to figure out the missing number on our guided practice. And now this one can get a little entertaining, but it's a good thing to be able to say, okay, what do I do here? I saw 25 went into 47 one time. I subtracted, I got 22. Now I have to figure out how many times did 25 go into 228. And if you say to yourself, well, about 5 times, there you go. Because 5 times 25 is 225. So 5 is our missing number. All right, let's have you practice one. Sorry, 9. I made a mistake there. I misspoke. It is a 9. How can estimation be used before, during, and after a division problem? I can use it beforehand to choose the correct answer, or at least where it should be. I can use it during to see how many times I want to start out with before having to adjust my quotient. And it can be used after just to kind of check if it was reasonable. All right, I'd like you to do numbers 2 and 4. To do numbers 2 and 4, you're going to have to pause the video. And then after you do those 2 problems, numbers 2 and 4, we'll unpause the video and we'll see how you did. You can write this on the paper in your packet. You can write this on notebook paper, or you can even do this on a dry erase board. Look forward to seeing what you have. You may pause the video now. Welcome back. Let's see what we got. 108, remainder 35, and 242, remainder 1. So on this problem, 51 went into 91 the one time, and then after that, it's the standard. Over here, 64 had to go into 154 twice. So our 2 is over here, and then it's the standard form. If you're watching this on YouTube and you didn't get these answers, I encourage you to try it again, knowing that I'm going to put my 1 right here, and I'm going to put my 2 right here, and try working through the problems again. If you're still stuck, you may reach out to me at mireland@psychchipschool.net or check with us during one of our independent work times or office hours. I'm going to give you one more practice. I want you to do number 6. Remember, when you're doing a problem like this, and this is the reason I'm going to ask you to do it, is you want to write it differently. You want to have it where this number is right here, and this one is on the outside. So on big number under the roof, little number over here in this case. This is your dividend number being divided. This is your divisor. So go ahead. You may pause the video and come back when you're ready after number 6. Welcome back. Let's see how you did. 471. 93 went into 438 4 times, and then we work our way through the problem. At this point, hopefully you're remembering to apply your divide, multiply, subtract, compare, and bring down, as it is important for you to do that. Otherwise, you're going to have a difficult time getting the problem correct. Remember to place digits where necessary. And now at this point, let's take one more. We're going to choose a story problem here. And we're going to choose number 15. 15 sounds good. I mean, it's so much bigger than 14, but yet not quite 16. Anyway, an average person speaks 35,000 words in 1 week. Why do I have the feeling I am exceeding that? Anyway, does the average person speak more or less than 2,500 words per day? Find the unknown number in the equation 35,000 divided by 7. So the unknown really in this case is the answer. You're going to divide 35,000 by 7. So go ahead, you're going to pause the video and you can come back and tell me what you think. Let me pause the video now. Welcome back. What did we get? More. It's 5,000 words a day. And I would remember this by saying 7 into 35 is 5, and there were 3 zeros. So this is one you actually could have probably solved mentally. But notice that they added the word words because you want to include your labels. At this point, I would like you to turn to page 281. This is the homework page. And as you notice, it gives you a sample problem so you can remember the steps. Use that as a tool. On numbers 1, 2, and 3, they ask you to estimate. You can do that on the side or in your head, and then divide. So you're going to want to divide these on a separate sheet of paper and be able to write the answer, or you can use a dry erase board. Number 4, given the area of a rectangle is this many square millimeters and the width is 12. Remember, a little key detail is that you need a formula here. And if you haven't remembered it, area of a rectangle is, which will be area equals length times width. So they gave you the width of 12. So you're going to end up going 12 into that. Turtles and tortoises have long lifespans. Tortoise can live for 54,750 days. How many years can a tortoise live? So they tell you to divide by 365. We're going to ignore the idea of a leap year. Over here, they tell you use algebra, but are we really? The new baseball stadium holds 64,506 people. There are 26 gates where people enter the ballpark. The same number of people entered each gate. How many people entered the first gate? So you're going to divide the two numbers you have here, that and that. And then go ahead and try your test practice one. If you want to turn this in, you need to make sure this you exchange this with me at the next paper exchange. Or you could solve the problems, write them here, and then submit them via the Google Classroom and that Google form. If you're writing stuff on this paper and want to still use the Google form, still go ahead and send this back to me. That way I can kind of see the work you've done. As always, if you have any questions, we do have office hours at 2 p.m. daily. It's still strongly recommended that you attend the math class. So if you're watching this video just because you didn't want to come to the class today, come to class. If you're watching this video because you had something else to do, yeah, Chimigwech for doing your work. All right, well, I'm going to wish you all a Minogizhigad. I'm a P.